Thanks so much, Tara. The Jostens Renaissance Twitter handle, by the way, is J_Renaissance. If you are not following, check it out. So our next speaker is another Renaissance Hall of Famer. He has so much heart and passion and a unique perspective, and he's one of the finest leaders I've ever met. Welcome to the stage, Dr. Frank Rudnesky.
Thank you, Chris, and thanks for that picture. I figured it out, and I want you guys to figure it out too. Happy people outperform unhappy people. So how do I get to that happy place? Climate and culture have a profound impact on teacher and student performance. Leadership has a profound impact on climate and culture. I never woke up one day and said, this day is going to be so mediocre, and neither should you. When I was in first grade, could you back up one? When I was in first grade, Sister Helen told our class that someday, by the grace of God, you'll find your vocation. We had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. We were 6. But that conversation stayed with me as my meandering path through life led me to college, a career as a street magician, a teacher, and later a middle school principal. I figured it out. Your vocation is your calling. It's what you're supposed to do. It's where you find those wow factors, those magical ta-da moments. You're epic. It's where you have the biggest impact on the people around you. I figured it out, and I want you guys to figure it out too. Leadership is not position. Leadership is not popularity. Without love, there is no leadership. Unconditional love is a lot like unconditional leadership. If you take those words, love and leadership, and use them as verbs instead of nouns and feelings, amazing things happen. You can raise the bar, set goals, never ask anyone to do something you wouldn't do. Lead by example, create a team. Think outside the box and then throw that box away or recycle it. Empower other people to be leaders. Have integrity. Always treat people better than you want to be treated. And have fun. Follow your passions. Take creative risks. I figured it out. There's a Maya Angelou quote. People may not remember what you said. They may not remember what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. I can't tell you one book I read in 8th grade, but I could tell you the name of every one of my classmates and how they made me feel every day and how they made every other student feel every day. And you'll be able to do that too. I can tell you the name of every teacher I've ever had and how they made me feel and how they made the people around them feel. And so will you. I figured it out. For me, the perception breaker was when I met my first basketball coach and my 7th grade teacher, Mr. Tamati. He was the first teacher that treated me like I was important. He made me feel like I could do anything. He showed me how to abandon that follower model and showed me that there's enough leadership for everyone, not just the top few. So I started to figure it out. When I became principal of a middle school many years later, the first thing we did was put an emphasis on climate and culture, take that follower model and throw it out the window. Give everyone an opportunity for leadership, especially the students. And because the students had a voice, some of the best ideas we ever had came from them. They started to figure it out too. One day, this 8th grade boy comes up to me, he goes, hey, Dr. R. I said, hey, Pete, what's up? I have an idea. You know how you're always telling us everyone should be a leader, everyone can be a leader? You know how you're always telling us that everyone should have an opportunity to walk across that stage and down that red carpet? Well, when we came up to the middle school from the elementary school, we were scared and apprehensive. And those 8th graders were big, and some of them were ugly, and they intimidated us. So how about if the first day of school, we roll out that red carpet, and you could announce their names we could clap for them and welcome them onto our campus and let them become a part of what we're doing. Leadership, character, Jostens Renaissance principles. That's a great idea, Pete. So that's what we did every day on the first day. Well, one day, about 14 years ago, around the corner comes one of our students, Julie, with that epic smile. And she gave me hundreds of those over the next several years. And when Julie was in 7th grade, one of my goals as a principal was to teach a leadership lesson to every student. So that's what I did. And if every CEO, director, manager, superintendent, principal, supervisor did that, our role models would not be cartoon characters that live under the sea, robots that fold out into trucks, or trucks that fold out into robots, or Barbie. Hey, cool people to hang out with. But our role models need to be people that we could talk to. So Julie was sitting in the first row, and we were talking about raising the bar and setting goals and coming up with a plan, and I pulled out of my pocket an index card. And Julie writes me years later, at that point, I became vulnerable. I shared a piece of me with the students. And I showed them on the card I had my goals for the day, the week, the year, and she told me they started to figure it out. Well, at the end of her 7th grade year, because Julie was born with a birth defect called cerebral palsy, she had learning barriers that some of us don't have, and she had an exaggerated limp, and physically she had barriers that most of us don't have. At the end of 7th grade, she had a very painful operation. Her Achilles tendons had to be cut, stretched, screwed into the bottom of her bones in her feet. She could have blamed, but instead, she remembered those middle school lessons. And she started to figure it out and set her goals. First goals were something like, put on my shoes and socks. Next, walk across the room after my operation. And she continued to set her goals. In high school, she wanted to take an AP Language Arts course. So that's what she did. She wanted to pursue her passion to become a teacher that started in middle school. So she enrolled in Queens College in North Carolina in a teaching program. And she knew that her journey wasn't going to be easy. And her classmates would be teachers sooner than her. Because of her disability, she couldn't drive. So when she had to go out to do field work and observe schools and teachers and talk to students, she had to take public transportation. And she was discouraged sometimes. And at the end of her 4 years, she wasn't able to do her student teaching and complete her teaching degree, but she did have a degree in social studies. And her last days on campus, she writes, they were filled with gratitude and reflective and wondering what it would be like to pass on those lessons of leadership, character, and Jostens Renaissance principles. So she enrolled in a graduate program to do her student teaching and complete her teaching program. And she was scared and apprehensive, and some of her professors even told her, hey, Julie, nice try, but maybe teaching isn't for you. Hey, Julie, thank you for the inspiration. Wow, nice effort, but you should try something else. Well, that wasn't good enough for Julie. She just dug deeper, and she remembered her mentors and those lessons. And the day before she went to do her student teaching, she was still scared. She called up one of her mentors, and one of her mentors told her to take something familiar with you into the classroom. So she remembered when she was in high school, she came back to visit her middle school to tell us about her journey so far. And we gave her a gift bag, and in that gift bag was a Jostens Renaissance pin that said, Bellhaven Middle School Renaissance, there's no place like home. And she put it on her lanyard, and she went in the next day. Smallest class she had 35 students in it, and physically she was the shortest person. And by her own words, it was a train wreck. Anything that could happen, happened. Some students weren't even nice to her. Some of the teachers weren't even nice to her. But she dug deeper, and she remembered her training and those lessons. And she began to pass those lessons on of leadership to her students. And this past April 2017, student Julie completed her student teaching. and became a teacher. The tipping point occurs when climate and culture shift perceptions so that not only do you look in the mirror differently to see who you are, but you look in the mirror differently to see who you can become. Because we believed in Julie, Julie believed in herself. And now she's at the top of one mountain, and she has many more mountains to climb and oceans to swim. But she's at the beginning of becoming a great difference maker herself, where she is going to get other young people to believe in themselves. Julie knew that that door to leadership and to accept your role as a leader is always open. And if you haven't accepted your role so far, you still have time. The perception of education and the perception of young people needs to be upturned, because together we are going to do some amazing things and give the world what it needs: hope. So let's get fired up, people. Nobody should ever anticipate, thanks. No one should ever anticipate having a bad day at home, at work, or at school. So it's up to us. Let's get this thing started. Thank you for listening. I salute the greatness in you. Here. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks. Thanks so much, Frank. What an inspiring story. Frank's second edition of his leadership book is available now in the Ren store, so be sure to check that out. As Frank talked about, there's an importance to have the student voice in Renaissance. And if you ask any adult in the room what it takes to implement Renaissance successfully in your school, it won't take long to talk about having a passionate and importantly involved students. And so we're excited because our next speaker is a former student, as all of us are, but